Hello, I'm Claire and welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be a perfume declutter video. So I have a few fragrances in my collection that I've just not been reaching for, and there's no point me hanging on to those fragrances. I feel they could make somebody else very happy, so they shouldn't stay with me. But I just have a few fragrances I've bought over the last year that I haven't got along with, some that I've been gifted in PR that just weren't me, and also some that have been in my collection for a long time and for some reason or other I've just stopped reaching for. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire. I talk all about fragrance on this channel. I talk about perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, and I also just do some straight perfume reviews, fun perfume tags. And if you haven't already done so, then please do consider subscribing, and please also press the like button if you do enjoy this kind of content. So let's get on with this. What am I decluttering? So the first fragrance is Cosmos Sacred Mist, and I bought this one sometime last year, I think in May, perhaps April, sometime in the spring anyway. And I wore it quite a lot over the summer, but the more I wore it, the more I sort of discovered that there was something about this that I didn't particularly get along with. So this is Kate Moss's now defunct brand Cosmos. I was really trying this because I used to love Kate Moss's fragrances back in the 2000s. I finished a bottle of Kate by Kate Moss. But yeah, this one is a citrusy, woody fragrance, really very different to Kate by Kate Moss. And it's also got a strange sweetness, a bit of a metallic twang in the dry down. There's something very odd about the dry down of this fragrance. It's also slightly sour. And I think this is just something I'm not going to end up reaching for. Considering this is described as a treatment mist by the brand, it actually lasts a long time on my skin. I get 4 or 5 hours out of this one, perhaps longer on clothes. There's no problems there. It's just that strange metallic twang and the slight sourness in the dry down. So that's Cosmos Sacred Mist. So the second fragrance I think is going to shock a lot of people. And this one is Guerlain's Aqua Allegoria Coconut Fizz. So this is long discontinued. I've had this bottle since 2021 and I've just stopped reaching for it. I put it on my tray back in August and I think I wore it once or twice. It really wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to pick up, that I wanted to wear. And I felt like that for a while now. There's something about this that is meaning that I'm not loving it anymore, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think maybe it might be the slight salty aspect of this fragrance. You know, you definitely get a bit of an ocean or beachy vibe from this. It smells almost like you've been in the ocean and you've got some sun cream on and your skin is drying in the sun with the salt particles appearing as the seawater evaporates. It's got that kind of vibe to it, alongside a bit of a green aspect and also a creaminess. There's sandalwood, there's vanilla here, but it's just an odd combination of the coconut water, the saltiness, alongside that kind of greenness and the creaminess. It just isn't something that I found myself wanting to wear recently. This, considering I've had it so long, I've hardly worn very much of it, and that's because it's just so strong. This is a strong, long-lasting fragrance. This is actually the strongest fragrance I've smelt from the Aqua Allegoria range that I've tried. I'm hoping this one will find a new home quickly and it will be, much enjoyed. But I think I've just had my time with this one. So that's Coconut Fizz by Guerlain. So the next fragrance I feel really sad that I don't love, and I can see totally that it's artistic, that it's well done, but I just don't really feel like it's me and I don't feel like it suits me. So this one is Frederic Malle's Lipstick Rose, and I bought this after trying it in store and absolutely loving it and thinking that maybe I'd even buy a big bottle at one point. This fragrance, it's really quite different to the version that I tried in store. The one in store had quite a definite grapefruit opening, it had more rose to it. This one, though, really doesn't have those elements at all, and I'm so confused at the difference with smelling this one as opposed to smelling the one that I smelt in store. So this one really is all about the violet, the iris, the powderiness. It's all about the makeup-y kind of feel, and also the heliotrope, which comes off as slightly almondy and really contributes to that kind of vanilla almond dry down to the fragrance. It's very dense, very powdery, very vintage smelling to me almost. And it totally does capture what it's trying to, but it's just not something that I found to be wearable for me. But again, I appreciate its artistry and I do think it's a great fragrance. just not something that I find myself wanting to wear. So that's Lipstick Rose by Frederic Malle. So the next fragrance was a cheeky blind buy in TK Maxx. Again, never a good idea, and this one I just haven't got along with. I tried to, persist with it. I tried to keep trying it, but I just don't think this is ever going to be something that I'm going to, wake up in the morning and want to spray on. It just doesn't excite me. So this is Maubussin's Star. So this one I would describe as smelling somewhere approaching Bois Doré by Cleef and Arpels, but it's really not quite as complex as Bois Doré. If you think about Bois Doré, it's got that really interesting golden feel to it. It's got that nutty vanilla and the tonka. It's really a very inventive fragrance, Bois Doré. Maubussin's Star is a little bit more one-dimensional. It's a tonka vanilla. It's definitely got a smokiness. It's definitely a little bit resinous. But there's also just something odd about the opening. It's almost like the saffron here to me. It's not quite saffron, but there's something approaching saffron. And I'm just not a big fan of saffron in fragrances. And I particularly don't like the opening of this fragrance because of that. But also in the dry down, it just reminds me of things that I've decluttered. So things like Mercedes Club Black. It makes me think of, impressions of Baby Cat almost. There's something here that I just don't get along with. I don't know whether it's one of the ambers here or perhaps, one of the other bases here as well. There's something off-putting to me about this fragrance. I think this is a fragrance that could be extremely popular. I think this type of fragrance is generally something that I don't love, that usually lots of other people do love. So I wouldn't be put off by my views on this one. I think if you do like fragrances like Mercedes Club Black, like Bois Doré, then you might like this one. And it's significantly cheaper than things like Bois Doré. So it might still be worth checking out. So that's Maubussin's Star. So this next one is an odd one. I won this in a giveaway around Christmas time and it took ages to get here. It arrived finally in, a couple of days into January. And I was so excited to try this. I was, it's a prize. You're always excited, aren't you, when you win something? And I sprayed it the first time and I was just so disappointed. And I just know I'm never ever going to reach for this. So this is Parrois Azure Blush. So this fragrance I think is considered to be a bit of a dupe of Delina. I think if you like Delina, I wouldn't try this fragrance. It's just nowhere close to me. It may have a similar note structure, but there's something about this that is very, very off-putting compared with Delina. So this has a lot of rhubarb. It's a very kind of green feeling, but there's also some amberwood here. It's not listed, but I definitely smell amberwood. And amberwood is something I generally don't get on with in fragrances. It's usually something that's very off-putting to me. This also does have a lot of lychee, and it is quite fresh feeling, but it's definitely got a bit of a foresty vibe about it too. And actually the dry down, I was so confused because the next day I could still smell something and I thought, oh, that doesn't smell like what I sprayed on this morning. What is that smell? And it honestly smelled like fairy liquid. And there's something so soapy in the dry down of this fragrance. It honestly smells like something you'd use to wash up with. And that's the reason I want to get rid of this one, because I just would never ever want to reach for this because it's just so soapy on my skin. It literally smells like detergent the next day on my skin, and it lingers, it hangs around on clothes, it hangs around on skin. I'd showered and I could still smell it. So it is incredibly strong, incredibly long lasting, but also incredibly synthetic and just not something I want to wear. So that's Parrois Azure Blush. So the next fragrance I was gifted in PR by Granado, and it's just not something that is my scent profile. That's the reason I'm getting rid of this one. So this is Granado's Apotecario, and this is an intensely leathery fragrance. It smells like a black shoe leather in the opening. It's also got some licorice, and in the dry down it goes into more of a black tea along with that leather and an intense sweetness. It's slightly resinous too, and even a bit foresty. Granado's fragrances, a lot of their fragrances I don't get along with, but not for the reason that I don't like the scent profile, but for the reason that I just find that they use a lot of off-putting aroma chemicals. I would say with Apotecario, that is not the case. If you do like leather and if you do like, that kind of sweetness and resinous feeling fragrances and tea, then this might definitely be something that you might love. But I think for me, it's just the wrong scent profile. So that's Apotecario by Granado. So the next two I was gifted in PR by Borsalino, and these two just haven't been things that I've loved. I think actually the first fragrance is much better for me than the second fragrance, and I think really these two, there's some kind of aromachemical thing going on in the dry down that I don't love, especially with the second one, White Iris. But Black Iris is definitely the better one for me. So Black Iris is actually marketed towards men, and I'm really not sure why they've done that, because to me, I think this might even be more appealing to women than to men in a general kind of perfume market. I mean, I know it's difficult to generalise, but I really don't see what it is that makes this one a masculine fragrance really overall. So this opens with carrot seed, and carrot seed has that very distinctive kind of powdery but almost kind of dense texture to it. It's almost a little bit nutty carrot seed sometimes, and that is beautiful. I absolutely love the opening with the carrot seed, and actually the texture in the opening along with the iris makes me think of fragrances like Glossier You. It's sort of on that kind of level, not quite the same, but it's a similar feel. The dry down is really more about a woody vanilla alongside an iris. And actually the dry down is just a little bit less interesting for me. I just really like that carrot seed opening. And yeah, I've just not found myself wanting to reach for this one, so that's why this one's going. But the other one that I want to also declutter is White Iris. So White Iris I just liked a lot less than Black Iris. But this one is a yellow, tropical, sunny kind of fruity fragrance in the opening. It also has a little bit of a coconut feel to me. It actually smells a little bit like a fresh coconut water in the opening, and then it dries down into more of a powdery, almost coconut flesh kind of smelling fragrance. This also has some orange blossom in the dry down, and also the texture from the iris, but I would say the iris is not really primarily front and centre in this fragrance at all. It's more about the fruitiness for me and the muskiness of this. This one makes me think of fragrances in the same vein as things like Prada Paradoxe. It definitely doesn't have that orangey feel that Paradoxe has. It's more of a yellow feel, almost pineapple-y to me, but I think the listed note is lemon. But I think if you liked Paradoxe, this one might be something that you might want to check out. But for me, this is just not something that appeals to me. So that's White Iris by Borsalino. So the next fragrance was one I was gifted by Dossier, and I had such an awful time with Dossier PR people that it made me never want to interact with the brand ever again. And I've decluttered the other two fragrances they gifted me, and I'm going to declutter this one because I just have a little bit of trauma from dealing with them. So this one is Mimosa and Cardamom. So the problem with Dossier were they wanted me to stick to a script, and they wanted to tell me what they wanted me to say. And I don't work like that. I just said, I can't work to your script. And they also wanted me to put out a video about these fragrances within 48 hours of me receiving them, which I find incredibly unreasonable. I like to try things for a long period of time before I put out a review of things. Generally, I like a month's kind of turnaround before I talk about a fragrance. So I just found them utterly unreasonable, and it made me not want to interact with them. But that's by the by. This fragrance I do think is actually quite a good version of Mimosa and Cardamom by Jo Malone. This is a Spicy Mimosa by Dossier. And yeah, I would say, if you are interested in that Jo Malone, but you don't feel like you want to spend the money, then maybe do check out this one. But I'm sure if you're not interacting with Dossier's PR people, you'll probably have a much better experience than I did. But this fragrance, I think it's just not something that I'm going to reach for because of that poor experience I had with them. So that's why this one is leaving. So that's Spicy Mimosa. So the next fragrances are all from the same brand. They're from the brand Czar. And I said when I was talking about the fragrances that come into my collection that I was intending to declutter all of these because none of these have been particularly for me. I do think that this brand makes good quality fragrances. I do think they're inventive, but they are all of a particular style that isn't particularly me. And I think this brand has huge problems actually in the fact that they don't market a sample set. The only way that you can try these fragrances is either by visiting a store that stocks them or by getting them to send you cards that they've sprayed the fragrances on, which to me is only going to show you the dry down. I don't think that's the way that most people want to sample fragrances. Most people want to experience the whole wear of the fragrance. And I've pointed this out to the brand, but they've still not marketed a sample set. So yeah, these fragrances look like this. They actually gifted me 5 different fragrances, I think because they don't have sample sets. I think that's the issue. So none of these were particularly for me, but I think if you particularly like greener, herbal, powdery, leathery fragrances, then Czar might be a brand to check out. I do think that even though they use different perfumers for all of their fragrances, they do have an overall theme of using particular notes more than others. And I think if you do have a particular favourite perfumer and you see them collaborating with Czar, then for sure they might be worth checking out. For example, I was really particularly excited when I saw Peak, which is Céline's Rokian fragrance. But actually when I tried it, it had a bit of an odd metallic feel, I think, from the aldehydes, and it just wasn't something that I thought was me in the long term. I enjoyed trying it, but it just wasn't something that I found myself reaching for over the last few months. And that's why all of these are going. So yeah, that's all the fragrances from Czar. So that's Peak, Sword, Antelope, Link, and Gentle Fusion. So those are the last fragrances I'm going to be decluttering today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed it, then please do press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And also please do let me know if you tried any of the fragrances I've featured in this video and what you think of them. And also let me know if you've been letting go of any fragrances recently from your own collection. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.